Hello there! In 2022, Saber Spark. You probably know who Saber Spark is. He made that video right there. And then later he made that video right there. Because of this podcast right here. He made the follow-up video after talking to me, not the original video. I'm not that influential. Which was recorded, you guessed it, in 2022. And I took down a lot of old podcast content. Naturally, you get better and you realize you don't want your old content up anymore. But like the 100th podcast, I kind of felt like this one might be fun to get back out. I introduced him to Very Veggie Silly Stories, which is the recasted VeggieTales project, because at the end of that video, he concluded it by going, hey, look, we got the VeggieTales show now in a better place. And we were. What he didn't know, what I didn't know, what we didn't know was we were about to get that right there. And props to the writers, props to the voice actors. Introducing it to Saber Spark was a lot of fun. Have I gotten better at podcasting and interviewing? Sure, but still worth watching.
This is Finnegan Rowe on the ultimate unofficial VeggieTales podcast. I am here today with Saber Spark. I am so excited to have him on here. How are you doing, man?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm doing very, very good. I feel like everyone in the fandom, in the VeggieTales fandom at least, has seen your VeggieTales documentary. You know, that kind of blew up, and people talk about it all the time, constantly referencing it. You know, whenever I'm making a video, people are always commenting and referencing the documentary. They love it. So
I'm honored. I actually didn't even realize. I didn't realize that. I'm flattered. I was like, well, let's make it a good video. Hopefully, folks like it.
Oh no, they love it. They love it. I mean, it's gone far beyond just the fandom, but in the fandom specifically, people they love it.
Good.
So they're going to be happy to get a little continuation of that, because you left off with the VeggieTales show, and everything seemed good. Everything seemed smooth. VeggieTales shows in full throttle, filling mic back, and then,
I actually did not know. To my own shame, I have not been keeping up with the recent, topical news for VeggieTales. So this could be very enlightening for me as far as where things stand. Because the last thing I recall from I feel like an idiot for not knowing exactly. I remember ending the video on a positive note where it's like, Phil might come back. Maybe they'll take it in the right direction it needs to go. But it sounds like that's not really the case. So I guess we'll get to that when we discuss it.
That's really disappointing too, to make such a good comeback and then crash back down,
Well, shoot, maybe you can enlighten me. I can make an update video on my channel. We'll see.
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. And maybe play some excerpts from the podcast here, let you hear some really strange stuff you haven't heard yet. All that after the theme song.
If you love your veggies and want more to know, then I've got for you a spectacular show. We be giving the facts of this lyrical rhyme and bringing in guests quite a lot of the time. If you search for your hairbread like cheeseburgers too, then I'm happy to say we got a show for you.
So, before we even go into the recast, what's your earliest memory of the VeggieTales franchise?
When I was a little kid, I was like, I think 7 or so. I remember hanging out with my cousins and my sisters at my grandfather's house. It was a big old family reunion, and we were down in the basement. And this kind of that was the kid section. And it was a finished basement. It's not like we were thrown into a cellar.
Yeah,
but it was a finished basement with a playroom and all those things. And we had this little TV that it was one of those TVs with a VHS set built into it. And my auntie Jane brought a bunch of VHS copies of VeggieTales, and she's like, "Well, we'll just put this on for the kids." And into the tape goes into the VHS player, and it was like, "Where's God When I'm Scared?" Oh gosh, Daniel in the Lion Den, just the old standby of the initial episodes from the series. And I was like, this is cool. Because at that time as a kid, I really never understood the concept of 2D or 3D. I just saw it as animation. I'm like, because it's like the way where my nieces and my nephew don't question the internet. It's just entertainment. That's just what they're born into. So for me, I'm like, oh, I like Rugrats, and I like Looney Tunes, and I like VeggieTales. It's all, cartoons to me, not really knowing how much of a trailblazer VeggieTales actually was at the time. So I just watched it. I liked it a lot, and it worked a lot for my family because my mother and my father, especially my mother, very Baptist Christian, and we were very much so churchgoers and went to church on Sundays and kind of plugged into we were part of, I guess, the Bible Belt. I don't want to get off the beaten path to your question, but I was no stranger to VeggieTales or Christian media. So, but that was the first time I saw as a kid. And I vividly recall it. I remember sitting down being like, wow, David versus Goliath. This is interesting. I like it. My parents are like, good, keep watching it.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Definitely beats.
Keep watching cartoons. Okay.
There you go. Definitely beats. What's it? Grantham's Pond or something?
Gaither's Pond.
Gaither's Pond. Yep.
Good old Gaither's Pond.
Yep, definitely beats that. So what brought you back to VeggieTales to create your first VeggieTales video? I guess you kind of kept up with the Netflix stuff, or at least were familiar with it, and then the VeggieTales show and all that.
So I was just going through a catalog in my brain of like, what can I do? What's ruining topics about? And I'm like, I'm like, where did VeggieTales end up? I'm like, 'cause I loved it as a kid, and I'm like, whatever happened to it? And I thought to myself, it will probably be more of a niche video. Because I've done like what ruined Nickelodeon or what's ruining Cartoon Network, and I'm like, that's broad appeal. VeggieTales, it's a bit more narrow, so it wasn't at the front of my to-do list. But then, because initially when I did my outline and my research, it was so surface level, where I'm like, oh, it went to Netflix, that's what happened, bad. And then Ryan Walterson's a friend of mine who contacted me, and he's like, hey, there's a book by Phil Vischer, you should check it out. And I'm like, oh, okay, because I was literally at the part of my process of creating content where I was like, okay, let's go into the script. And I bought the book and I sat down and read the first chapter. And I was like, what? I'm like, I didn't realize how, like, and then I kind of scrubbed through the book a bit, just kind of catch some ideas of like how things went downhill with chapter titles. And I was like, wow, like this exploded in like popularity and exploded in its decline. And I'm like, this changes everything. And for the next 3 months, I went back to the drawing board and just overhauled everything. And thank goodness, because I guess that video goes to show you can have a niche topic like VeggieTales that still has broad appeal, because it's a very human story of, visions of grandeur and trying to rise up with very little, accomplishing that and then crashing. So, but yeah, it was on my radar, and I was like, I'll get around to it, not knowing how explosive the topic was.
Yeah, the VeggieTales story is pretty crazy.
It is.
It's a crazy story.
Christian Walt Disney.
There we go. I mean, but when you think about it, like, I guess VeggieTales, I mean, obviously VeggieTales isn't like as well known as Disney or as popular as Disney. Mm-hmm. But like when you think of Christian media, you do think of VeggieTales, right?
Right.
I still get that.
The forefront of my mind, VeggieTales, and also like credit where credit is due for VeggieTales, where it's so popular that even non-Christian families would watch it, which is like, that's how good it was, that exactly. Even people outside of the religious circles would watch it.
So I know you've heard a little bit of the recast. You made your video, ended with the VeggieTales show, everything was good. When you heard about the recast after the VeggieTales show, what was your first thought? Did you think there was still hope for the franchise, or were you kind of just like...
I did not know about it until this very moment. When you told me about the recast, I'm like, wait, the what? I didn't know. That's how out of the loop I've been. So you mentioned that they got rid of Phil and Mike, and I guess they're recasting the voice actors.
They've recasted everyone. Yeah, they've already done 15 episodes. They did a they called it Very Veggie Silly Stories, which is just so creative. And it was a podcast series, so they just skipped through the animation, right? They had Kira Buckland and Stephanie Sutherland doing all the girls' voices. And then
wait, hold on. Rita Chan is doing the voices for all the girl vegetables. We're mutuals on Twitter. That's really what the heck. Okay, so they so Phil and Mike got kicked out by whoever. Oh, did they leave voluntarily, or did they say it was actually them getting kicked out?
I know they asked for more creative control. They went to Universal. Universal reached out to them and said, "Hey, we're doing a VeggieTales podcast. Do you want a voice?"
Real quick, it was a common misconception in the community back in 2022 when the podcast was coming out that Universal was to blame for the departure of Phil and Mike, but it was actually the head of Big Idea. Creator Phil Vischer talked about this on Twitter and on my podcast.
Can we write some scripts? Can we have some more creative control rather than just like being pulled in as voice actors whenever necessary? And Universal was like, no, we're just going to fire you actually and find new people.
What? When did this happen?
They were mad. This was, I think they got fired actually in the middle of the VeggieTales show, but the recast didn't start till May. So I think it was June last year when the Good Shepherd, if you've seen the Good Shepherd episode for the VeggieTales show, when that released, it was around the time that released, that they announced the recast. And the recast released in May.
Wow, I didn't know. This might be a follow-up video in the works here. I might have to reach out to you and the other VeggieTale folks to Oh, did my camera freeze? It froze.
It froze.
Womp, womp. To me.
They'll come back, I'm sure.
Universal saw me talking about them. I don't like them. And they
there you go.
But this is incredibly disappointing. I really was because I followed Phil on Twitter, and I saw a brief tweet where it sounded like it was disheartening, where he's like, "Yep, things aren't working out." And I'm like, "What are he talking about?" I didn't realize it went this deep, so it's like, "Oh, it's a shame."
Let me see if I can share screen, and I'll let you hear part of the podcast. And I think most of the folks listening know about the recast. They've heard it because I've ranted about it so much. But it's fun to be on the podcast with someone who isn't too familiar with it, so I can kind of rant with them.
Let's give it a shot.
Hey, Bob. So, when does Mr. Nezzer get here? I'm ready to start this podcast.
Me too, Larry. Hopefully soon. I don't want to start the show without him.
Bob? Larry?
Oh, hi, Petunia.
Good to see ya. What's up?
So that's Bob and Larry and Petunia.
It's good. I mean,
And,
it's I say it's good as in like it's not the original, but it's okay.
Not too far.
I'll give credit to the voice actors who are imitating it. It doesn't sound terrible.
Yeah,
but,
I didn't think so either.
But there's something that just seems kind of soul wrenching about getting rid of Mike and Phil. It's corporate intrigue, I suppose.
It is for sure. Here's the trailer. You can kind of hear all the voices through if you want to.
Hey, kids. Do you like to talk to tomatoes?
Yeah!
Can a squash make you smile?
It sounds a bit off here, actually.
Do you like to waltz with potatoes up and down the produce aisle? Have we got a podcast for you?
I thought Larry sounded like
Wait.
a jester.
Podcast? Since when do we do podcasts, Larry?
I can't hear what you said there. What'd you say?
I thought Larry sounded like a jester, kind of like a carnival jester.
Right. You know what?
Someone in the fandom had said that.
The more I listen to that audio, it's not as good, actually. So,
And hear the voices all the way through if you want to hear they do like a little roll call thing. What was annoying to me when they released the trailer, they made it like a band getting back together thing, which had already happened in the VeggieTales show. But if you want to hear the rest of it, I'll push play.
And TV shows, movies, the occasional dog show. Why not a VeggieTales podcast hosted by Bob the Tomato? That's you, Bob. And Larry the Cucumber. That's me, Bob.
Will there be music?
Oh, yeah.
Lessons from the Bible?
It's what we do best.
Dancing?
I'm literally tap dancing right now.
And most importantly, do we get to talk to real-life kids?
All the time.
I don't know, Larry. What about all our other friends? Will they make it?
Get in here, guys.
Roll
Roll call.
I'm Junior Asparagus. I like singing and hanging out with my BFF, Laura Carrot. Hi, everyone. Petunia Rhubarb here. I'll be bringing surprise guests onto the podcast. Also, I've recently enrolled in trapeze school.
See? This podcast is gonna be so surprising.
The name is Lunt, Mr. Lunt. International Man of Mystery by day, animal translator later that day.
Animal translator? I don't think that's a thing.
Ladies, please.
What about Madame Blueberry?
Oui, I wouldn't miss this for the world.
Pa Grape? Did somebody say my name? Jimmy and Jerry?
We're here, but only for the snacks.
Archibald? I've prepared a fascinating lecture on the history of Aztec agriculture. Bob, are you crying? I'm just so happy.
And that about
those are all
covers everyone.
Those are the new voices.
Those are the new voices.
Okay. It's actually not terrible. It's not bad actually at all. I think it's fine. It just feels, again, like Bob and Larry are the most noticeable ones that sounded the most different to me. The VeggieTales faithful, will probably have a bit more of a finer tooth comb to tell the difference. But for me, who is not as up to speed, just hearing those voices, I'm like, could have fooled me a little bit for some of them. But Bob and Larry are the most noticeable, where it's like, especially Larry, I'm like, something's off a bit. Something's off.
Yeah, Larry's the hard one to imitate for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, thanks for letting me know about that. I did not know.
Yeah, it's kind of for me, it's not really the voices that are the problem. It's the way it went down.
Right. It's the principle.
It's the principle. So it's kind of a mess. What do you think's next for the VeggieTales franchise? Do you think it's going to stay alive, or do you think it's going to, perish?
Well, it'll probably keep going. I think VeggieTales is enough of an established brand where it will just keep. It sounds like it's been mismanaged for years and years, and that it definitely declined after its explosive introduction in the 90s and 2000s.
For sure.
But I don't think it'll ever come back to what it once was. But I don't see it going anywhere either. Not to put it on the same level as the following examples, but like Barney the dinosaur isn't going anywhere. Blue's Clues is not going anywhere. Sometimes just the existence of a brand and just staying with the course is enough. Which I like to think VeggieTales is better than both of those series. No shade to either series respectively, but VeggieTales had this je ne sais quoi about it, of made it different, where it's like you can still do the God Bible stuff, but also have unique characters and funny jokes and funny, even secular gags. That was one of its strengths, and I definitely feel like Phil and Mike were a big contributing factor to that, and that anybody else were probably going to just be imitators as far as its creative direction and writing goes. Phil and Mike had respect for their series. I think they never talked down to it. It's like they knew that kids watched it and they kept it kid friendly, but they also had a lot of jokes I felt like had broad appeal where it wasn't exclusive to parents or kids. It's just everyone could laugh. I mean, the entire weed eater joke still cracks me up, where I'm like, they predicted the internet like 100%.
For real.
So, and
Dr.
that's
Livesey walking.
Right. Absolutely. It goes to show you that like that they were more than just like missionaries. They also could be artists, and that's what made the show different.
I think so too, and I think it's I don't know, like going 30 years and then ripping out the people who created it for asking for more. It's just strange to me, It just seems like there's more to it than that,
Yeah, well, it's possible that Universal just like get out. I mean, sometimes corporations are like, "Do we need them?" No, get rid of them.
It's true. Because
they're like, don't stand in our way of getting our money. And it's like, oh, great, cool, money, wonderful.
Yeah, I know. Really keeping the heart and soul here.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of disappointing. And what's strange, if you've noticed, VeggieTales is trying to stay fresh, and so they don't stick with the series for more than a few episodes. Like the theater shows only went 26 episodes. They stopped those. Now they did this podcast for 15, and they stopped that.
I think they don't even know what they were working with. Phil and Mike did. I don't think the folks who've bought VeggieTales know what they're doing with it. They're disconnected.
Yeah. Well, you said inherited at first. I think that's actually the perfect word for it, because VeggieTales sort of indirectly ended up with Universal. Like Universal, I don't think they really, if I'm saying this right, seeked out VeggieTales.
Seeked, sought was right there, man.
It just kind of fell down the stairs and landed with Universal.
Right. They're like, I guess we'll take it.
Yeah, they just ended up with it. But Universal's not really a devoutly Christian company, so taking a Christian franchise, they're not going to take it in the direction that people who created it wanted to go.
Right. They're like, can we get rid of the God stuff?
Yeah, there we go. But I feel like at that point that would like lose the entire audience, because even non-Christians know what VeggieTales is supposed to be.
Right. Even non-Christians are like, well, why isn't Bob saying that God loves me?
Exactly.
Am I special? Does God think I'm special still?
Then In the House and the City were Christian series too, even though people like to say they're not,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen some people say they're not. Some people, I think in your review, you said it was to an extent still Christian, just not as much. I think is what you'd said.
At that point, though, I felt like it just existed because that's the brand. It wasn't like it's the writers being like, we've got to keep telling God. It's like, no, Phil wasn't on a mission. It was innocuous enough in presentation, but he still had his purpose. Versus Universal, who are like, put the God stuff in and keep the Christians happy as long as we can keep making money. It's like, oh, great.
I think that's about right. Yeah, because they have this brand established. They just want to keep moving it.
I mean, Little Blue posted a note saying VeggieTales still doing bad video. Just kind of, if anything for myself, I'm curious to look into it and see where we stand. I didn't realize of the recent events, so I'll definitely ping you as far as like, hey, I might need some information from the VeggieTale faithful to make sure that I'm getting everything, dotting my I's and crossing my T's. But I did not know that Mike and Phil got dropped, so a follow-up video is not out of the realm of things.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to seeing that too. And I know you said you don't think VeggieTales will end, but hypothetically, if it did, do you think that would be best at this point, or do you think it should continue?
If it's not in the right hands, then it should be completed. It should be put to rest. Where, do one last big blowout, bring Phil and Mike back for it, and have Bob and Larry say, thanks for watching, and then just end it. But if it's going to persist and be a husk of its former self, then that's not worth it to me. Never is.
I agree. I've envisioned that, bringing everyone back and just having like one big finale. That would just be, But they never really did finales, like they never did a really good finale for any of their series.
Nah, it's hard to catch, especially for a kid's show. The closest one I can think of is maybe Arthur. That's it.
Yeah, Arthur had a good finale. They did good with that. I'd be shocked if SpongeBob didn't have a good finale.
Oh gosh, I don't think SpongeBob will ever escape that limbo. They are in branding perpetuity, whatever. So
they are. So is Family Guy.
Is it the right phrase? I had the wrong phrase. But yeah, they're
perpetually. They're
going to just go on forever. It's never going to end.
Yeah, I think so too.
It's like saying, will Bugs Bunny ever get a finale? It's like
no. They'll just keep moving from series to series.
Precisely.
Yeah, because it's like, well, what is Bugs Bunny? Is Bugs Bunny a TV series? No, Bugs Bunny is a character from like 30 different TV series.
He is a brand.
He's a brand, exactly. And I think that's what VeggieTales is now. VeggieTales is a series, but it's also like 30 different series.
Yep. Which
is kind of strange. Now, do you think they'll ever just find something and just stay with it? Just like, do you think they'll ever find another niche? Like they found the countertop thing, it worked. They did it for like 25 years almost, or no, it was more like 20 years, I guess. Then they got their Netflix thing and they kept that going for a while. And the theater show went for a few years. This podcast barely went for a few months. Do you think they'll ever find something that they just stick with again, like the countertop?
I mean, I guess all depends if something clicks. The countertop just felt so natural because it's a bunch of vegetables in the kitchen. Makes the most sense. Maybe a garden, maybe. But at that point, I feel like they're just getting lucky. If they find something that works and they're like, oh, it worked, let's keep it, I thank you for having me. Thank you for enlightening me. And a big thanks to all the VeggieTales fans out there who watched the video, liked the video. You all are a very supportive and kind group, and you should be very proud of your fandom. So thank you.
I mean, I keep up with all your videos, not just the VeggieTales one. The VeggieTales one pulled me in, and now I just watch all of it.
Oh gosh, well, thank you. Yeah, it's quite. Some of my videos are very different tone compared to VeggieTales video.
No, they're all good though.
The VeggieTales video is probably the most, besides the Joshua and the Promised Land reanimated project. I'd say the VeggieTales video is probably my greatest piece of work, as far as like the best video I've ever made. So I'm very proud of it, like extraordinarily proud. So knowing that folks like it and enjoy it, and that makes me feel much better. So I feel
makes it worth it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. 3.6 million views. Good gracious, it's awesome.
So I guess we're going to wrap this one up. Thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you. And
absolute pleasure.
One more question before we head out. Yes. Looking back over the VeggieTales franchise over all the years, over 90s, 2000s, all the recasts, all the spinoffs, what would you consider to be their greatest piece of work?
The Pirates Who Don't Do Everything. Oh, the Pirates Who Don't Do Anything is probably my favorite. I'm very biased because I watched that song, watched the episode, watched the song, and my two friends from back when I was in 6th grade decided we'll do that song for a talent show for our school.
Oh, nice.
And I was Larry, and I still listen to the song, and I'm like, those lyrics are still dancing around the corridors of my brain. They're still there. So that's probably my favorite.
Did you do a Larry impression or just sing as Larry?
A stupid little puberty, on the cusp of puberty. Larry, and of course, it sounded better in my head when I was a kid. And I remember like at the end where I was like, I found a nickel. I think at the end, Larry found a penny, I believe.
A quarter. Yeah.
It was a quarter.
Like I found a quarter. Yeah.
I found a quarter. Yeah. We actually had that on the stage. It was a quarter. And I'm like, I found a quarter. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That is really fun. I wish that was on video.
Oh God, right. I'm glad it's not.
Well, if you ever find someone who videotaped it and it resurfaces, then let me know.
Oh, that'd be a mind blown right there. Yeah. Well, I'll let you know.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Signing out. We'll see you all next time. Goodbye.
In 2022, I interviewed a YouTuber by the name of Saber Spark.